Hello and welcome to my channel, Eightfold Wellness. I am Tanya Ben Mansour, licensed massage therapist, clinical hypnotherapist, Reiki master, martial arts instructor, yoga instructor, as well as Dharma and meditation practitioner for the last 35 years. I began this journey about the age of 9 with martial arts, where I learned meditation at the age of 11. So it's been this lifetime of study and practice and demystifying and digging into the root of suffering. Suffering is inevitable, but how do we navigate it? That is the question. And that is what everything on this channel is dedicated to. And today I really would love to talk about this rhetoric of the dark side of meditation going on. And we'll do another video to talk about what is meditation and what isn't. But for today, I would like to address especially what a neuroscientist by the name of Willoughby had to say about meditation and some of her research. I think she was hoping to prove that meditation help sleep and insomnia, but then the findings proved that it did not. And then she went on to say that some meditation teachers try to hide this. And as someone who helps guide others in Dharma and meditation, I can say that only a bad teacher would do that. And for those of you that have had those experiences, I know that I have myself. It's a travesty, but today I would really like to clear up what is the dark part of meditation. And so in her claim, she wanted to say that she was unaware of this, but if you do a simple Google search about meditation, it will usually reference the 4 jhanas. And on the 3rd jhana, the meditator will cease to have dreams and will need less sleep and never feels tired as a result of this. There may be an adjustment period as you go through these jhanas of the body and, the nervous system and the mind integrating and leveling out. But for the most part, there should be not a whole lot of turbulence in the transition, unless there's a whole lot of turbulence inside of us. The dark side of meditation, there's no dark side of meditation. There's only a dark side of humanity. First of all, if you do too much of something too fast, yes, it can have detrimental effects. Too much too fast can actually result in SSRI syndrome or serotonin syndrome. Because what happens during meditation, once you can get the habit, at first the meditator is generally very frustrated. They sit down and they're like, I can't do it. It takes a while. First you have to develop the habit of being able to be still. And that is where most people never break past. But for meditation having a dark side, it shouldn't. When you go into vipassana meditation, which vipassana means to see as is, you're going into the deeper levels of your own conscious experience. You might touch upon the collective, but you're going into a space where whatever you encounter, as it is said by Buddha, all is mind. So if you encounter darkness or a dark side to meditation, then it is your own darkness that you must deal with. A lot of meditation, and I begin by teaching my students to go into meditation and begin that habit with a shamatha, which is a one-pointedness. You can point at a flame, the breath, a circle, a point on the wall. It doesn't matter. A point in your mind, wherever you want to focus one point, just to get the mind away from all of this and bring it in. Now, what happens after some time is that meditation, if it's being done in an appropriate method and not listening to music and calling it meditation, That is not meditation. It never has been, never will be. Then it becomes vipassana, which is you begin to see things as they are. And as you go into those layers of self, you begin to see yourself as you are, what you came here with, what you are unaware of, maybe the darkness that you've done in another life, maybe the darkness that you refuse to admit to yourself in this life, those unsavory patterns of mind. And what happens is people get scared. They begin to think that there's an entity or they're guides or what. There are no guides. Plot twist and spoiler alert is that you are your spirit guides. It's all you. We are doing all of this. And as for the dark side of meditation and the lack of sleep, I have not had dreams in decades. And that's a natural part of it. If I have a dream, it means that something is going to happen and it needs to be addressed. And that's been the case, is that it always happens. If I have a dream, something, whatever I dream about, is going to happen. So if it's about me, I need to deal with it. If it's about someone close to me, I need to inform them. Whether they deal with it is up to them. It's not my control. It's not my problem. But this, when you go into the third jhana, this happens. I have, for years, I sleep between 5 and 6 hours a night. And I feel myself waking up at that 5-hour mark now, feeling very refreshed, feeling very alert, awake. I don't need caffeine in the morning. But there is a process to get there. When you have to face yourself on your darkest levels, when you go through that process of adjusting and you're like, wait a second, I can't sleep. It's okay, don't sleep. And you may have a week or two of where the body is adjusting into that. As I've said before, it's just the nervous system adjusting, but it is a natural process of meditation. There is absolutely no dark side of meditation. The darkness we encounter is the darkness within ourselves that we need to deal with. Meditation is the best medication. Truly, great masters can heal things with their thoughts, with their meditation. But it takes so much effort. It takes so much time. And what can happen also is when someone is going from the first jhana to the second jhana, the first jhana is where you might begin to be able to sit undisturbed for a little while, like you're just being able to maybe get a relaxed state. You sit down and your thoughts aren't racing as much and you can begin to relax. The second jhana is that you are able to stay in that relaxed state and start to begin to come more into the theta, pure theta wave of meditation a little bit longer. But what happens is because of that, the ego kicks in and goes, oh, I've done it. I'm unlocking my superpowers or whatever your ego says to you about it. And that's where one has to be very careful, and where there's a big danger in meditation is the mind and the ego can then begin to set in with some delusion. And then once you just, as I tell my students in this phase, is when thoughts, images arise, is to not ignore them. We don't want to suppress anything. Meditation and, liberation is about being able to meet life on its terms and without life affecting you so greatly. That's part of it, but small part. But when we go into that second jhana, the danger is there for the mind to want to think, oh, I've done this. And then people, they stop there, and then nothing else happens, and then they see, and then they get away from the habit. It's very difficult to come back into it once you have left the habit. Once you begin to let back in those attachments or re-embrace them, if you haven't gotten to a certain point. Once you get to the third jhana, that is when things get a little weird, or where things begin to really come to the surface. It begins in the second jhana, really carries into the third. The third jhana is deep. It's where you see yourself in all things that you are. You may not like what you see, but you will learn to love what you see as you sort through it, as you accept and unwind and deal with what karmic seeds are present and what aren't. And when you just accept that things are as they are, then the light comes into the darkness. But you do need less sleep. You have an easier time falling asleep. Meditation 100% cures insomnia, in that the meditator, by the time you get to the third jhana, you fall right into sleep. There's no laying there thinking about your day, tossing and turning, trying to get this and that. You will fall right into sleep. So meditation does 100% cure insomnia, but it doesn't if your idea that you attach to a norm that we create to say that this is one and this is not, in this one-size-fits-all box that no one fits into, that medicine, allopathic medicine, tries to fit us all into. You have to let that model go, because at the third jhana, that model is no longer applicable. A serious neurological transformation has taken place. I'm sure all of the neuroscience would back that up. The meditation has a big effect on the nervous system, and that's why there is a side effect. And any good teacher is going to explain these things. Side effects of meditation. Being too much too fast is a bad thing, right? You get a plate of food and you might think it tastes good, so you eat it all up really, really fast, you get a stomach ache, or you get bloated. Same thing with meditation. Too much too fast. It's a habit that deeply affects the mind and the nervous system, so it needs to be approached slowly, cautiously, and with respect. Building a habit, I usually recommend people begin 5 to 10 minutes in the morning, 5 to 10 minutes at night, increasing 5 minutes every 2 weeks until you get to roughly about the time equal to the number of years of your age. So if you are 40 years old, you would want to work up to where you're meditating 40 minutes in the evening, 40 minutes in the morning. At least no less than 20 minutes in the morning. If you don't have time, if you can't. But by the time you get to that point and you begin to feel the benefits of meditation, you'll want to make that time. But it's a habit that has to develop slowly. But the side effect is going too fast. You can fry yourself. You can give yourself like a serotonin syndrome. I had it happen. This young man in Africa, he's so sweet. I think he's in Kenya. He contacted me online, and he was frantic. He said that his body felt in pain and sensitive all over. He couldn't sleep. He was having delusions. He wasn't feeling well. And I asked him how much he was meditating. He was meditating about 2 to 3 hours a day. For a 21-year-old man, that's way too much. Way too much. So I advised him in this to cease all seated meditation for 2 weeks. Let the nervous system readjust. And then begin slowly, as my original prescribed, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes, and then building and staying at that point. Once that happened, all of the issues with his health went away. The body was able to recalibrate. So yes, there are dangers. Just like there's dangers of drinking too much water, there's dangers of too much caffeine, there's dangers of too much food, everything. There is always a cautionary line, because we're not meant to live on these extremes. When we do that, it's very unhealthy. So meditation doesn't have a dark side. It has always a bright side, but it also has a protocol and appropriate lines of attainment, lines of practice. Now, another note about meditation is if you sit in a seated posture 20 minutes to an hour a day and you feel great, but then you get up and you're yelling at everyone all the time. You're always reactive, angry, throwing things, you know, there's whatever tendencies you might have, too much of this, too much of that, then your seated practice, what are you doing? You're okay, you took time to relax, you did nothing. There's meditation is not just the seated practice. It is the practice of seeing yourself as you are at all times. Stopping, practicing living in this emptiness, which is not devoid of emotion. It's not devoid of anything. It's just where we see things as they are before we attach an idea, an image, or a thought to it. And so when we can live in that space and take the time to look at ourselves, our thoughts, our actions, and act in a mindful, thoughtful, and compassionate way, that is practicing meditation. So what you're doing in your seated practice should be bleeding over into your life in a positive way. And yes, it does get a little scary when you face those dark parts of yourself. But as I've said before, there is no dark side of meditation. There is a dark side of humanity. Thank you all. Amitofu.